Welcome to the Ideal Investor Show. This is the podcast where we help you challenge your mindset and discover where you are. Tired of stories about other people's success? We can help you change your life, determine your time freedom point, and join us on the journey to financial success. Let's go. Hello and welcome to a very special episode on the Ideal Investor Show. It may not feel like that. It doesn't really feel like it to me, but today is the 100th episode of the Ideal Investor Show. And I'm very, very proud that we have actually reached that milestone, especially in light of the fact how we actually started. Now, admittedly, we were ambitious. We had big goals. We wanted to make this a really good show. We wanted to bring in wonderful guests, but we didn't really know what we would get ourselves into. So if I go back to the beginning, the first few episodes, especially since we had from the get-go said we wanted to do both the audio, the normal thing where you can find the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Google Podcasts and all these major platforms as audio, but then also put the shows as video on YouTube. I was really nervous, and there's a little bit of a saying, you know, anybody who has been listening to us or has been a follower of ours, or, you know, even if this is the first time for you to see an episode of the Ideal Investor Show, you can probably detect that even after all these years of living in the United States and in the UK and so forth, I still have some of my German accent left. And I was actually born in a part of Germany, in northern Germany, where the saying goes that right after you have been born, you're ingesting a stick, and that's why people from northern Germany are typically so stiff. So when I started with the Ideal Investor Show, especially for the part on the video, I was always mortified. I thought I would come across very stiff. I tried to script. My little angel and elf Nadine actually tried to encourage me to write a script like most people, especially when they do videos, they write a script and then in a way you have some sort of a teleprompter or something like that. I tried that and I just couldn't make it. I mean, it was not possible for me to stick to the script. I always had some ideas while I was actually on the show trying to record an episode. So we skipped that, partially because of that stick in my spine that makes it stiff enough to begin with, but also because it felt kind of artificial. And then for a while we said, okay, well, we do these episodes and we have me basically talking to you and explaining what Ideal Wealth Grower and our out-of-state investing philosophy and the time freedom point and all those things that you have heard me talk about many, many, many times, what all of that is actually about. And again, we realized, well, if we really want to serve you, our audience, then one of the important aspects of that is we want to educate you not only about the things that we do, which you have many, many other things. We have videos, we have terminology, we have the website, we have all kinds of other stuff. I'm being invited to other podcasts to be a guest and get plenty of opportunity to explain how our system works. And then for anybody who is in our mentoring group, or we call it the tribe, we have one-on-one meetings and everybody is different and individual. So there's plenty of stuff, ebooks and whatever articles every week that we put out. So we decided, okay, we bring in interesting guests, but then where do you actually learn how to lead a conversation or an interview? I had never done this before and I had to work on it, to be honest. I hope at least you would agree that I got a little better over the last 2 years. But to make all of this happen, I think the first thing that's in order here is to really thank my team. And that starts with my wife, who always gives me space and room to do this and who gives me feedback if I'm over the top or if I'm too loud or am not in the right mood or look kind of weird because I didn't actually look in the mirror before we started recording, all those kind of things. And I want to thank my daughter, Sarah, because in the very beginning when we started, we needed to set up all these things. And I can use technology, but I'm not really good with setting stuff up. So she helped with the YouTube stuff and setting up the account and how to make it all work and was super, super helpful with that. And then the team that has basically been working on the podcast from the get-go were Jeremy and Nadine on our team. And then a little bit later, Alfred also joined. And he is the one now, when you actually take action, when you're interested to get in touch with me, you can do this, but I will talk about that a little later. So thank you, Nadine, for being there and helping us. And I know that we originally started out with you basically trying to organize it. And I want to tell the audience how grateful I am and our team is that we gotten to a point where we are basically being asked by all kinds of people, hey, can we be a guest on the Ideal Investor Show? Which is awesome because it allows Nadine and myself and Jeremy to really focus on putting a great product together for you every week, rather than having to chase the opportunity to find guests and find opportunities for me to be a guest and all that stuff that we did in the very beginning. So thank you to my team for helping me to constantly evolve, get better, get more professional, bring out a better product. And then my second thanks go to the audience. I really want to help you. I really want to make an impact in your life. And I realize not everybody who is a regular listener or subscriber to the audio recording on Apple Podcasts or Google or any of the other platforms, or even goes to the YouTube video, and you may or may not subscribe there or give it a thumbs up or any of those kind of things. But the goal for having this show is to get you more and good information about real estate investing, both in the area that we are focusing in, as well as all the other opportunities that are out there. So thank you for the audience. Thank you for anybody over the last 2 years who's been listening. And I want to make a commitment that we are constantly working to improve. And in a little bit, I will tell you what we actually decided to do now that we are getting beyond the century mark. And then the third part that I think is also very, very important and wouldn't have worked. Our show so far, the way we have set it up, would not have worked without the guests. And we had awesome guests. I mean, I couldn't even believe it when I saw, okay, we have the former CEO of Goldcorp. Now, yes, we are real estate investors, but to get a CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company come on our show and be a guest and tell us how you can diversify your portfolio by investing in gold on the stock market. And he is the guy who made that happen. Or we had several really, really awesome guests that taught us about syndications and all kinds of different syndications. We had guests that taught us about franchising and how, if you wanted to go from a regular job to become an entrepreneur, but not start from scratch, how franchising could be a good way. We have had guests that actually told us about new platforms, especially lately, where AI becomes more and more of an issue. And we want to learn how can we use these tools to our advantage without having to pay a whole lot and broaden our horizon. So this show, to this point, these 100 episodes would not have happened if we wouldn't have had great guests. And then the last thing I want to mention, and that is not particular to anybody specifically, is I believe we have been able to create a certain atmosphere where people now come to us and constantly send messages to Nadine to become guests on our show, because I believe they like that we have a flow, that we have a conversation, that we are really engaging, and we are not very stiff following a certain script or a certain structure where everybody has to answer the same questions. That doesn't mean that that's not a good format, but for us and for my way and not being able to use scripts, it's really better to have a conversation where we can discover what is the core that somebody is doing in their business that could help our audience members, you, to actually diversify and at least trigger thinking, should I maybe get involved in that? Should I diversify a little bit of my money in any one of these different areas that we are providing to you? So that's a little bit of a view. How did we get started? Why were we so stiff in the beginning? How I believe I have evolved the conversation with our guests over time. And now we want to look a little bit forward into the future. And it gave me pause when Nadine said, hey, are you aware we're getting up to the 100th episode? And I reached out to a number of people that are really, really successful in podcasting to see and ask and talk to them, what can we do better? What can we change without losing our identity and losing our core? So I don't want to throw everything out with the bathwater, as they say. I can tell you, don't be worried. The podcast will continue, but we will make a few changes. Right now, you know our podcast as coming out once a week with an interview episode. And every so often, I have something to contribute, like today with the 100th episode and other episodes here and there, where I want to get a message directly to you where you don't necessarily see a guest. But one thing that several of the people that are really, really successful told me, and that I want to make available to you, is for you to have an opportunity to kind of participate a little bit what is going on throughout the week in context of real estate, in context of money, in context of what I'm working on and what I'm engaged in as we're basically progressing through the week. So going forward here past the 100th episode, what we're going to do is we will still have once a week our interview episode, but around that interview episode, we will have a short little blurb, if you want to, something anywhere between 6-7 minutes to maybe 12-13 minutes, to give you a little bit of an insight. And my goal with that is to give you a little bit of what I'm doing so we can get to know each other and have a little bit more of an intimate connection with each other, and what is relevant, or what have I seen, or what do I think is worthy talking about for money investing, real estate investing, reaching the time freedom point. And one thing I want to tell you in the beginning, in case you are used to getting the podcast on YouTube as a video, for the beginning phase of this change, where I'm giving you a little bit more interaction and engagement, we will have those short little around 10-minute clips as audio only. They will obviously go to all the podcast platforms, so there is really not a change for anybody who is going on the podcast that way. But we will not post these audio episodes right now on YouTube. We are playing around with the YouTube podcast edition. They recently added something for podcasts. If it's relatively easy to put the audio in the podcast feature of YouTube, we will definitely try this. One other thing I want to announce here as well is, with this rhythm of having a daily short episode and then once a week a longer episode, we will also now start posting all these episodes on X, what was formerly Twitter. And that is just to help you have one more channel, one more platform, one more source for what your preference might be. Some people like to be several hours a day on X. Some people prefer video and go on YouTube. Some people like audio and they just listen to the podcast. It's up to you where you actually consume the podcast. But one thing, especially now that we have reached this milestone of the 100th episode, I really, really want to ask you actually two things. One is, when you are consuming our podcast, then please do us a great, great favor and download it and leave a rating or a response or a comment. I didn't know this when we started 2 years ago, but podcasts are ranked by how many downloads they get. Even though you and I and anybody can listen to the podcast without downloading it, but the downloads are actually ratings. So please download, give it a ranking, give it a comment. Now, one other thing, like a little piece of information that you might be finding interesting, I wasn't aware of this either, but even though there is pretty much podcasts for anything and everything you can imagine, what's interesting is that a lot of people start a podcast and after the first 5, 10, 15 episodes, they stop. So you being a subscriber, a listener, or a viewer of our Ideal Investor Show, you are part of a community of less than 5% of podcasts who ever make it to the 100th episode. So I want to really thank you for that and congratulate you as well as our team that we made it this far. And there is no intention to stop at all. Exactly the opposite. We want to intensify. The last thing I want to make you aware with this 100th episode is that we realized, yes, you can download, yes, you can rank, yes, you can leave a comment, but that's not really the maximum engagement that we can provide to you. So as this 100th episode is emerging and coming out and available to you, and even if you hear or listen to this or see this episode later, like in a few months or maybe even next year, we have, as of today, started to have a website called the Ideal Investor Show, website, and you find it by putting in idealinvestorshow.com. And when you get there, we basically give you an opportunity to find all the episodes, and all the future episodes will be posted there as well. So you can actually make that kind of like your preferred place to go. But more importantly, and I really, really want to ask you to do this, is we give you an opportunity there to book a call with me directly. Because I would love to get to know the audience a little more. And ultimately, I would also discover, is what we are doing and what we have been evolving, getting bigger and getting more opportunities and offerings for you, is that something that would actually fit with you, fit with your goals, if you really like the idea of working and getting on the journey to get to the ideal wealth or time freedom point. Right, so that's our way, our journey that we are prescribing to and that we want to encourage you to do, but it's not necessarily for everybody. To find out, I want to ask you and encourage you to take action. Go to idealinvestorshow.com and book a call with me. Let's get to know each other a little more. And if you then see that what we do might be something that you want to get involved in too, then we can start working together more directly. So again, thank you to everybody, to my team, to our audience, to our guests for your patronage, for your loyalty, and for allowing us to get to the 100th episode. And I can't even tell you how much I look forward to do these daily episodes, these audio episodes, and especially engage more with you. And then my final thing is, please don't ever hesitate to give us feedback so that we can continue to improve. So be well, stay safe, and I see you on episode 101.